What's better than an armored Typhon Grom? How about two armored Typhon Grom? Aloha and welcome to 9th Island RC. You're probably wondering why we've got two armored Typhon Groms. You got the original one that I had right here, and you got the brand new one right here. So you're also probably wondering that, why this body is not actually on it. So let me give a quick breakdown on this one. This is the original one that I bought, and initially the only upgrades that I installed were the front shock tower brace and the rear shock tower brace. I took it out for its initial run along with some other vehicles for New Year's Day. As a matter of fact, I was up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the first vehicle, everything was running great. That would be the Kraken Vesla. And the second vehicle, everything was running great. That would be the Larlo XTS F10. So when I got to this vehicle, things started out great. I mean, it handles very well. I was in the College of San Mateo parking lot, and I don't know what happened. I could not see that I hit anything. I did not see the vehicle fly up in the air, but I hit something. And next thing you knew, it was dead in the water. And basically, I can't remember which shock it was, but the lower shock arm on one side had literally just cracked right through, snapped off. Basically, the lower piece was attached to the arm and the rest of the shock was dangling free. So that was when I started doing some upgrades. Started with the, I believe these are the Power Hobby all aluminum shocks. So, steel shaft obviously, but the body is aluminum, adjustable ring, cap, and the lower shock arm. They're all aluminum. Started with that, installed aluminum front steering knuckles, aluminum rear uprights, hardened steel aftermarket drive shafts, and then the big one. So I've got a Reefs 99 servo in here, and the Hobbywing XR14, which had just been released at that point, along with the Hobbywing motor. Now, initially, the body fit because I was not using the stock motor, the stock motor fan. The motor is too long, so what I had done was I had removed the ESC fan, and it was kind of like sitting down in this little slot here. So the body did fit. But I am preparing to switch things around, so this vehicle will no longer be running the original body. I'm not going to disclose what I will be running yet, but what I did was I returned the ESC fan to its original position. I added the motor fan, held on by two screws, onto the heatsink. I moved the cap pack, which originally had been situated down in this little area for where the battery goes, and also the power switch I had originally had back here. But the problem is that with all of this, the body will not fit. So you can see that I've moved the power switch to above here, right above the servo saver, and yes, I've already tested to make sure it doesn't hit. I moved the cap pack over here. Everything else is pretty much as it was. But getting to why I've got both on here. So what I plan on doing, this power, these electronics are what I plan on running in the buggy, the actual running the Typhon body, at least for now, but I do have something planned for that as well. So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to transplant the electronics out of here into the other one, and for now I will put the other electronics in here. That was the first option. Option B was going to be to remove all of these aluminum parts and install the other aluminum parts, which will be going on the other vehicle. They will, so basically the other color scheme is going to be red. So I could have removed all the blue parts, put on the red parts. Honestly, that's too much time, too much work, because I'd then be having to install all those same parts on the other Typhon. So the easiest thing to do is just to remove the electronics from this one, put them in the other one for now, take the electronics out of that one, put it in here, and then essentially this vehicle is almost good to go. So the first step is going to be to remove the electronics from this one. Then I'll bring the other Typhon Grom on, and I'll remove the electronics from that, put these into that one, put those ones into this one, and essentially that'll be just all this video really is. So there you can see we've got the electronics out, and I can also point out a couple of the other changes that I had made in upgrades. So you might be able to see here I've got the hot racing aluminum steering mechanism, or steering arms, whatever you want to call it. And then I also replaced the original ring and pinion gears on the differentials, which you can see here, with the spiral cut gears. And so that's another reason I didn't want to deal with switching all the blue components over to the other one and then installing the red components on this one, because these spiral cut gears are going to remain with the Typhon. So I didn't want to deal with having to remove all of that. So for right now, let's just go ahead and set that off to the side, and we will bring over the new Typhon Grom body, and I will remove the electronics from this one now. And there you have the electronics from the new Typhon. And I know some people have been curious as to whether or not they've made any changes. This one is from when the Typhon Grom BLX was first released, and it's a brand new one. I'm just curious if I can see any differences, but I believe it's still 100% the same. Okay, so, and you might notice that I am still using the original plastic motor mount plates. Unlike some plastic motor mount plates that are just a nylon-based plastic, these are carbon reinforced, and so they are actually a lot stronger and less flexible than your typical plastic only, whether it's an ABS, nylon, whatever. I do have the aluminum ones, and I will eventually get around to installing them. But for right now, the reason I chose to stick with the plastic ones is because I had not yet decided what tooth pinion I will be using. So I figured it's best to stick to the stock plastic one until the decision is made. So we got that in place, essentially to where it's going to be. All right, so let's get everything back in. Okay, so there, the electronics have been swapped. And And probably noticed that I put thread locker on the screw for the steering on this one, but not on the other, and that's because obviously the other one is still the plastic steering mechanism, and this one has the hot racing aluminum one. So yeah, obviously not using thread locker on the other one until I install aluminum one. You probably also might have noticed that in tightening screws that go into plastic, I tend to tighten up until the point that it's catching, it's almost there, and then I will back off about a quarter or sometimes a half turn. And the reason for that is when a screw is going into plastic, it creates friction, and the friction creates heat, which in turn can soften the plastic. Now granted, the majority of the plastic on this is carbon reinforced, so it doesn't affect it as much. But typically, when the plastic is getting softened because of that friction, the best thing to do is to not fully tighten, because that is going to be how you strip the threading in the plastic. So by tightening it up just until it's really catching and then backing off, then let it sit for several minutes. And it doesn't matter whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes, it's your own personal preference. At least let it sit for a couple of minutes. That will allow the plastic to cool down. It will allow the plastic to re-harden. Then you can go back and retighten. And what I will typically do is I've literally left things like that where it's backed off, and I will let it sit there sometimes for a day or more. That way it has plenty of time to reharden. And then you're not going to have to worry about anything in regards to potentially stripping the threading on the plastic. So just going to get these last two screws in, which are holding the servo mount, which is also the ESC in this case. In the other one, obviously, separate ESC, so it's a different configuration. And eventually this will also be done that way. I have not yet decided what ESC and motor I'll be using. I do have a motor that I will temporarily be using in place of the stock motor. And I'll tell you now. Well, the stock motor is 4,500 kV. The replacement motor, which is a non-censored motor, it will work with the stock ESC, it is 4,400 kV. Now you're probably wondering why I'm going to go with the slower motor. And that is because the spur gear, I will be dropping down from the stock 59 to a 57 tooth. And I will run the stock 21. So between dropping down 2 teeth on the spur gear and going with a slightly slower motor, the actual top end speed should be slightly faster with everything else being stock. Obviously now this vehicle weighs a little more. So what I will do is I'm going to do a few speed test runs. So at the end of this video, I'm actually going to show you something where I ran the new Typhon with no upgrades. Box stock, these things run 40 miles per hour. I ran it in both directions, twice each way, and all 4 times it came up 40 miles per hour. So like I said, I'll show that at the end of this. But next I will do the same thing with this, still running the same electronics, but because of the extra weight of the aluminum, I'm suspecting it will probably slow down maybe 2 to 3 miles per hour. I could be wrong. Again, that's just an assumption on my part. But if you want to see the box stock Typhon Grom 223S BLX, watch this. Okay, so as I said, we are out here with the new Typhon Grom. And this is a, box stock. I did open the front diffs front diff just to check, and sure enough, it has almost nothing in it. But that's okay for the purpose of what we're about to do. Throttle is on 100%. Got the Typhon is up, running. Okay, let's go ahead and bring on back in. I'm going to get the first reading. So I've got stop. Stop. Doesn't seem to want to stop. There we go. And read. And 40 miles an hour. Alrighty. And let's bring it on up. Whoa. Let's bring it on back just to see what we got in that direction. Okay, again, stop. And get a little shade here. And read. And 40 miles an hour. Okay, here we go. Almost hit that bottle right there in the middle of the road. Okay, let's see what we got for this third pass. So, stop, read, 40 miles an hour, and we are off. Bring it on back and see what we get for this final run. Gotta admit, you know, these things out of the box, they are running spectacular. I mean, my first one was great except for the crash that kind of demolished a good part of it, but that's already been taken care of. So read, and yep, 40 miles an hour. So that is where we are going to end. Okay, so as you saw, these Typhon Grom 223Ss are quite a bit of a speed demon out of the box. I mean, for its tiny size, doing 40 miles an hour. And when I bought my Traxxas Rustler 4x4 VXL, which was how I got back into the hobby about 15 years ago, and that's after quite a lengthy absence from the hobby. As far as I can remember, I don't think that that vehicle went as fast as this. I mean, that's a 1/10 scale, you know, so-called trophy truck. You know, that thing, if I remember correctly, I believe it did about 35 miles an hour. And then you got this tiny little buggy, and it's doing 40 miles an hour out of the box on 2S. So right now, the only thing left to do to get this back to being able to run the stock body is to reinstall rear wing. And now I will admit, this rear wing is actually the rear wing that came off of the new one. And that's because the wing mount already has the new wing attached to it for the other vehicle. And I'm just going to call it the other vehicle for now because it's not going to be what it was. So we'll just have to wait and see. And that, you know, that will be coming in a future video. But for right now, I just want to get this back together so that now I can take this for a run with the stock motor before I put in the alternate motor to see how fast it's going to go. So for right now, let me just finish getting the swing attached. Oh, there you have it. This one, which was first Typhon Grom, it is now back to being able to run stock body with one slight exception. And that would be because this body, which has the clips, it's not going to sit fully in. Okay, so sorry I had to do that off camera, but that's because this piece here, which is the same as this piece, was actually attached to what the new body is, and I don't want to show that yet. So now stock body fits back on, and there we go. Not bad looking with the blue. But again, this body is not going to be the permanent body they'll be running. With the next video, I will install the new temporary motor until I decide what the permanent will be. And then we'll go do another speed test to see what the new speed is. Mahalo, and until next time.